the first pick in the NFL draft.
Good evening and welcome to the Franchise Tag Podcast with me, your host, Freddie Hall. Welcoming Andrew and Adam back to the podcast, and we are diving right deep now into the NFL draft, into the 2025 NFL draft. It's only around the corner, end of May, I believe the 24th of May. I'm going to check that and I'll give you the proper date at the end. But either way, you're going to need to book Friday off if you want to watch the whole thing, because this thing starts at 1 and goes early into the morning. And then, you've got the next 2 days. It's a little earlier on the Friday, and a little earlier on the Saturday. And it gets a lot quicker. But the first round is where all the action happens for the most part. And you've heard us talk about the first round a lot with the mocks and all the fantastic work that Adam and Andrew have been doing on their draft show, and it's really fantastic. So go and check that out on YouTube. But we're going to talk about players that maybe that you don't know, that are players that your team might look at further down the board. But basically, players that we believe, the guys here believe that are going to be really, really great players in the NFL, and that's what we're planting the flag. They're planting the flag on these players, and same with these players. They're going to go further down in the draft, but they're players that can really make a big impact on any team and in the NFL. So both the guys have got a fringe first round player, a player who might sneak into the first round, and they've both got 4 players that are that they're planting the flag on. They're going to be sort of round 3 to lower, that they believe are going to make a real impact in the NFL, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So you're going to hear people that you've never heard of before, maybe colleges you've never heard before. So yeah, we'll get all kicked off. I mean, Andrew, we'll start with you for this evening with who your fringe first round player may be that teams could be looking at.
Can I just really quickly say, this is basically a show to make us look stupid, isn't it? In the future, that's essentially what we're doing here.
I don't know. We've done this is the 3rd year that we've done this, and last year we got some really, really good names. We had Mikey Sainer still, didn't we? That we planted the flag on, that turned out really well. You had Drew Phillips, I believe.
Your bloke, yeah.
You planted your flag on. So, we've had success on this. I think a while back I had Chuba Hubbard when we all did it together, and that's turned out quite well down the line. So we have picked some players out over the years. So I wouldn't say we're that stupid.
A lot of self-affirmation to say we know what we're doing here over at the franchise.
Well, it wouldn't be a prospect show or draft show or a sleeper show without me mentioning the words Ohio State. So for my fringe first round player, I think he has the potential and the skill set to be in the first round. I just don't think that he's going to make it into that. So he's going to be a really, really good steal in the second round. And that is Donovan Jackson, the left guard or guard, whatever you like to call him, from Ohio State. He's 6'4", he's 320 pounds, a former 5-star recruit. He only allowed 19 pressures and 2 sacks on 422 passing snaps. And also, for me, I know they don't usually give this award to people of his position, but he was arguably the MVP for me in that championship game for Ohio State. Thought he was absolutely amazing. I think that needs some background context to it as well. So Donovan Jackson has played predominantly his first 3 years at guard for Ohio State. Absolutely amazing. And then that offensive line got some injuries. The center went down. And then most notable, Josh Simmons, a guy that we are talking about as a first round talent, left tackle, gets injured. And we are struggling and trying to find out whether we've got a guy on the depth chart that can fill in. And we then ended up settling on Donovan Jackson, the guard, moving to tackle. And I thought he did an absolute phenomenal job. Through that playoff stint that he did at tackle, he only allowed 2 pressures for the whole of that. And, you're going up against Oregon, Texas, Tennessee, and Notre Dame. So left tackle, absolutely amazing. Thought he had a really, really good, first team all Big Ten for those 2 years at guard. I think he will be a guard in the NFL. But that ability, that versatility that we like when we're looking at prospects is definitely there with him, that he could move out if you needed to, if you had injuries. So really love this guy. I think he's absolutely brilliant. And, like I said, versatility gets you up boards, I think. So I think he could scrape in at some teams. I think, he'd be really, really good at the Rams. So I think if they wanted to take a punt on him in the first, I wouldn't object to that too much. So Donovan Jackson for me is my player that I think is going to be really, really good in the NFL.
Do you think, I mean, similarly to another Ohio State player, where, see with CJ Stroud, where I know guard and quarterback is not comparable in terms of position, but CJ Stroud for the whole season was seen as not really a running quarterback, got into that playoff series, was using his feet a lot more. And suddenly with people like, if NFL teams weren't that sure on him now, they're going to be even more on him now because of he's shown his versatility and he's shown that what people thought was like the knock against him. Well, actually, it's not real. It's actually completely false. He can do that, but it was a different style of game plan when they were in the playoffs compared to the regular season. Do you think that the impact of him moving to that tackle position in the playoffs will have a bit of a similar thing where, he's just a very good guard to some teams, and some teams have come out and said they don't overly value drafting the guard position high. Seattle Seahawks have said that. They don't see the offensive line guard and centers should be first rounders. They're more interested in seeing him in the second round, in the third round. But seeing him go to tackle and seeing him be really successful in that playoff bracket, just like CJ Stroud did, do you think that team sort of went from, he's pretty good guard to, oh, wait, no, this guy can play, 4 positions on the line. I don't know if he's had any experience at center or whether he'd sort of be built for that as well. But how important do you think it is for NFL teams to have seen what he did in that playoff series and to be like, well, we've got a bit more here than just your standard guard?
Yeah, I think it is obviously very, very impactful that, if you want to plug him in, play him at guard and have him there. But like we've seen Ohio State, they had injuries, they lost their left tackle, and they didn't feel anybody else on that roster was good enough to fill in and play. You might be in an NFL team where you're in that position as well. So in your head, you're going, I can use this guy, he's going to be my guard. But if needs be, if I do have injuries, which you inevitably do in the NFL, O-line gets injured a lot. You've got a guy that you can then trust to move out to a tackle position and strengthen your team still. So, for me, I think that's really elevated his stock big time and could push him into the first round because of that reason.
Adam, Andrew said about the Rams being a team that would be maybe looking at someone like that. Does any other team that comes to the top of your mind but might get to second here and go, you know what, this looks like it could be an interesting pick for us?
I mean, who doesn't want a guard? To be brutally honest, I mean, there's loads of them. I think because you will see there's a lot of teams that need them, and O-line play hasn't been great the last couple of years in the NFL. So I do feel like there are a lot of teams out there. Obviously, a team like the Chiefs come to mind. I know that he's not necessarily going to play left tackle, but he could play guard, and he has the ability to potentially do that. So you got someone right at the very back of the first there that would really like one. There's
Dallas Cowboys scream to me a little bit.
Yeah. I mean,
they decided to go that way in the first round. But
yeah. So like in the second round, that's another one where you just sort of there's lots of teams out there that need really good O-line guys. And to be honest, the talent at O-line in this year's class, I would argue, is not as great as what it has been in previous years. So I think you've got a few guys who are very, very good at the very top. And then you've got some all right guys. And I think that Jackson is probably one who could kind of not necessarily become right at the very top, but has the potential to move closer to them than he does to being just one of the all right guys who's going to be like a plug and play sort of player. So I think because of that, he's definitely one that you will see move upwards. And it really wouldn't shock me if he ended up in the first round, just purely through necessity for a lot of these teams.
Well, let's stick on with you, Adam. So we've gone about oh gosh, I've actually completely forgot his name as well, which is really terrible of me.
Donovan Jackson.
I don't know why. I've been talking about him, and the name just completely slipped my mind from Ohio State. What's your player that you are seeing as a fringe first-round player?
So my guy's Trey Amos, the corner from Ole Miss. I think he's got pretty much everything that you want from a corner. So really good recovery speed, great anticipation and awareness. He reads the game incredibly well. Very good tackler as well, which is another thing that is kind of a little bit lost on some corners in this league. Confident, can play in pretty much all coverages. He's done that at Ole Miss as well. matches the wide receiver movements really, really well. So it's like he's kind of got everything that you want, and he's got a bit of potential about him to really kick on to be a corner one for most teams as well. He does have some issues, obviously. He's not completely amazing because otherwise he'd be right at the top. So his tackling is good, but it could be better. That could improve. He does sometimes struggle a little bit against bigger guys because, he's 6'1", so he's not too bad, but he is 190. You're going up against someone like Tessarola McMillan, so you've got like 6'5", 220 coming at you. He will struggle against that sort of guy. His speed is all right, but it's not the quickest. So there are like issues with him, but I think overall what really stands out to me is that he processes the game very well. It's like he almost sort of like his brain takes him into the right places so that he knows where to get to before the opposition has gone there. And I think that that's what I like about him. For me, he really reminds me of James Bradbury a lot. That's kind of the sort of player that I think we're talking about. And again, in the same way with the O-line class, we've got a cornerback class here who does, they do have some decent names to it, and there are some good players. But again, there's a lot of them that have had injuries, and there's a lot of them that are kind of, they stand out in one area, but not in all areas. This guy, I think, is very solid in pretty much all areas. And so I think as a good all-rounder, I could see someone taking a punt on him at the back of the first or early second.
Well, you pretty much stole my question I was going to ask, is that because of the injuries that have happened in this cornerback class, has that also pushed him up? But a side question I've got is that a lot of these teams we see, they don't always, they sometimes don't always just draft on the player, they draft on the traits and the traits that they bring. Yeah. And also, similarly, some teams draft because of football IQ. And it sounds to me like his traits might not be necessarily complete, but his football IQ is well above the average of this cornerback class coming out. Is that a fair statement to make?
Yeah, I think so. Like I say, he doesn't necessarily have that amazing speed, which you want all the time. And he doesn't necessarily have like the height or the power or the weight. I mean, they're not bad. They're just not like class leading sort of thing. So I think because of that might put people off. At the same time, I think if you just watch him play, you can see that he does everything very well. So it's just one of them things where it's like, I suppose it depends what you want, it's, from your corners. But yeah, I think he's got everything that he needs. It's just a matter of which team decides to go for him. But yeah, like I say, back at the first, early second, I think that's where he'll go.
Do you think, Andrew, that he is potentially that good a corner? Because I know you're keen on a fair few corners in this draft, and like I said about the injury concerns, you've got players like Benjamin Morrison, Savone Revel, who have had injuries and have been sort of in and out. I assume that Trey Amos has had a pretty clean bill of health for the most part. Do you think that is going to sort of help his stock because of the injuries around him in that class?
Yeah, especially with the severity of the injuries that have come to the cornerback class. We've done our top 10 cornerbacks, and even just our top 10, we went through it. There must have been at least 6 of them that had serious injuries, whether it be an ACL tear or a hip injury or shoulder injury or something like that. And he was one of the few that didn't have any serious injuries or knocks that took him out for any big period of time. So I think that there's less of a gamble with him, knowing that he's got the traits. He can play as an every down cornerback, as in press and in man. So there's lots to love about him in that respect. Whereas others, you might go, "Oh, he's tore an ACL." Mm-hmm. We think he's good. We think the ceiling's there, but this might be the safer option. So I think, that's definitely going to push him up boards. And I've tried when I've been doing my mocks because I had him down as the 4th best cornerback. But when I've been doing my mock drafts, as I get down and Will Johnson and Jahdae Barron have gone off the board, if there's ever a team towards the back that I'm going, they could do with cornerback help, he's probably the name that springs to mind for me of going, that'd be the next one I put in. But I do think he might slip in the actual draft over my personal one. So the likes of maybe the Jags or the Raiders, maybe the high top end of the second, I think is perfect position and good value for him there.
Yeah, the Raiders make a lot of sense for a team that really don't have any corners at all.
Indeed. Well, that's so Donovan Jackson, guard from Ole Miss, from Ohio State, and Trey Amos, who is from Ole Miss, the cornerback, are two fringe players. I think with this, with the plant flag players, you've both got 4 players. I think we'll go Andrew and Adam. We'll get back between the two of you. So Andrew, we'll go with you to begin with. So who's your first player you've got who you're planting the flag on?
Well, I'm still on the offensive side of the ball, and I picked a wide receiver that I have loved from day one of the start of this process. Loved him at college, saw quite a bit of him over the last couple of years, and that is Ricky White from UNLV Rebels. He's 6'1", 190 pounds. Had an excellent season in 2023 with 80 receptions, 1,483 yards, 8 touchdowns, and then followed that up in 2024 with 79 receptions for 1,041 yards and 11 touchdowns. And bearing in mind, he had that really, really strong 2024. There's a slight drop in the yardage, but you got to remember Matthew Sluka, the quarterback, after 3 games, decided he wanted more NIL money and just went, I'm not playing anymore. So they lost their starting quarterback at the start of the year. They were on a great run. Lots of people thought this team could have made the college playoffs, but they just missed out, went to a bowl game. He's got great spatial awareness, his ability to be charging down the out wide and then stop. And then on those comeback routes, just leaving the wide receivers for ghost. I think his route running is great. And his route tree is a little bit higher than a lot of people, considering it's classed as a small school. His route tree is quite advanced and his football IQ is there and his footwork's there. The only worries I do have with this guy is he's got a lot slender frame. He is a bit smaller than some of the other guys within this class. And he has had a few issues with drops over his time. Now, I don't know whether that's due to quarterback play or whether he's just generally not keeping his eye on the ball. And with that slender frame that I did mention, contested catches are an area as well where he might struggle in the NFL. But I think if he lands on a team that can use his abilities well, then I think he's going to be, maybe like I'm not going to say we always use a player comparison, don't we, as like a high end, don't we? But I just see little attributes of this guy, a little bit like Keenan Allen style player. I'm not saying he will be him, but I see those kind of skill
ceiling sort of thing.
So if he could get into a team where he's, pre-snap motion, they get him lined up against the linebackers and safeties, I think he'll do really, really well. And also you've got to remember with this guy, special teams expert. Even if he doesn't work out as a full-time wide receiver, the guy last year had 4 block punts on special teams, which most teams only had like 2 for the whole season, and he had 4 just to himself. So, upside there for an NFL team, even if he's just used as a wide receiver 3 or 4 within that team, that special teams upside's there with this guy as well. So I think if he lands on a team with a sort of a McVay or Shanahan or LaFleur mindset, offensive skills, moving wide receivers around, I think he'll have a position and do really well in the NFL.
I mean, they're really, really impressive numbers for a player that is at a smaller school. And like you said, with second string quarterback, not even starting quarterback. And it'd be fascinating to see any of these offensive guys that have got a little bit of talent go to some of these, incredible offensive minds that we have in the league as well. Adam, who is your player that you have got first?
I am going for Savion Jones, the edge rusher out of LSU. I think that Jones has basically he's got all the sort of fundamentals that you need for an edge rusher. Great size and frame. He's 6'5", 280 pounds. Strong, really strong hands. He had a really good pass rush win rate of 14.6%. I mean, we're not talking like Abdul Carter or James Pierce here, but we're talking like solid numbers for a pass rusher. I think he sets the edge pretty well. He protects the line very well. He does all the sort of like the basics pretty well. And He's pretty versatile when it comes to his scheme as well. It's like he can pretty much play in a 4-3 or a 4-eye technique. He's good for either of them. He does have some issues. His pad level is too high. That needs to change. He loses out leverage because of that. And just generally his overall technique kind of needs to improve when it comes to his hands and his footwork and just basically getting the maximum that he can get out of himself. So I think that he's got lots of really good things about him. He's going to be 21 on draft night, so he's really young. And look, I think he's a day 3 guy. I don't think he will be going before that. But at the same time, I think that you're going to see maybe a team punt for him, sort of like 4th round, 5th round, kind of makes sense to me for him. And he's got a lot of the fundamentals that you would want from an edge rusher, and hopefully, in time, for his first season, he could sort of like learn from someone, be on a team that really helps him out, and then progress from there.
Well, he's coming from a school, but only a handful of years ago had a defense that have all become incredibly good players in the NFL. I know LSU haven't really hit the heights that they did under that Joe Burrow era. I know Joe Burrow's on the offense, but that defense still had some studs on it with Derek Stingley and players of that ilk. And they've not been hitting them heights. But if he can come in and, like you said, learn the fundamentals and work on his game, he's in good stead. And it would be really interesting to see him go to a team, but maybe he can sit and learn for a minute, and with maybe a good edge rusher in front of him, and maybe not make the immediate impact, but can pave the way to them becoming a really great edge rusher for a team. Andrew, who is your second player that you've got?
I'm still on the offensive side of the ball. I've not joined Adam just yet on the defensive, and I've gone for a running back in Raheem Sanders from South Carolina Gamecocks. I feel like I've been talking about this guy for quite a few years now. I know me and Adam first started talking about him back in 2022 when he had an absolute monster season when he was at Arkansas. That year he had 222 carries, 1,443 yards and 10 touchdowns. Struggled with injuries that he was out for in 2023, but then transferred to try and raise his stock and move back closer to his family. I believe he's got a son in Florida, so we wanted to be closer to him. So he moved to South Carolina Gamecocks, SEC team, really, really good standard. And I thought he had a really solid 2024 as well. 183 rushing attempts, 881 yards, and 11 touchdowns. This guy is 230 pounds. He's 6 foot. His size, his frame, and his explosiveness is perfect for what the NFL looks for in a back. He didn't get the nickname the Rocket for no reason. For a guy that size, he is got that explosiveness about him. His contact balance is really good, which is what you want. And what I do really like about him, he's got really natural hands as well, and he's really good in the receiving game. He had 316 yards, 2 touchdowns on 27 catches. So that's quite high for a college running back. And I think that's a really, really big thing for him, considering he's classed as a downhill power bell cow back. And he has got that big playability as well. And I think he's brushed off that I think he actually had surgery in 2023 for his shoulder injury that he did get, and he bounced back from it very, very well. So, like I said, we were really high on him in 2022. Obviously, we know he returned, and we were like, yeah, this is going to be one of the top guys. We're going to have him in our top 10, our top 5. We're going to be, he's going to go off the board really early. And then I feel like he's just got forgot about, but he's definitely has the potential. And I think maybe it's because this running back class is got a lot of depth to it that he's just dropped down the boards, and someone is going to get an absolute steal with him, I think. And I think he's going to go. I think he might drop as far as day 3. Adam, what do you think that's about fair for him? Or
yeah, I'd be surprised if he went earlier than day 3. He's, like you said, he did very, very well, and then he's dropped down boards because of the class. It is. I mean, it's a crazy class, and I will be talking about one after this. And it is mental when you actually look at these guys of how good there are guys that are going to be really good. It's just going to be about whether they get the opportunity to be able to do anything. So yeah, I think that we've got an elite class, and you've got a guy in Sanders there who is, he's got everything that you want. It's just going to be about whether or not he gets his chance.
Well, might as well stick with you if you've got another running back. But
I
literally was going to echo the sentiment that you both given, which is it's going to be a shame for some of these running backs.
Yeah.
Will fall out the first round, the second round, the third round, even the fourth round, because this class is just so stacked. I mean, fantasy football people out there who are in Dynasty, keep an eye on all these guys and definitely listen to both of these guys who know about these players who may go to teams and get their opportunity. You look at San Francisco 49 has been a classic one last few years where Christian McCaffrey's been injured or other running backs have been injured, and they've had running backs come up and okay, they didn't draft them necessarily, but they've filled in and they've really, really performed because their offenses, their offensive style caters for their running backs to do well. So I think, unfortunately, for a lot of these running backs, including the one you're about to say, Adam, it may be landing spot a little bit and hopefully getting that opportunity. But yeah, you go ahead. Who's your running back? You've got this now then.
Yeah, so my running back is Kyle Monongai out of Rutgers, who he's 5'8", he's 211 pounds, and he is the 2025 Ray Davis. That's all anyone needs to know. So he actually didn't do very well at the combine. That's the reason why he's so far down. You look at his sort of like the measurables that he had at the combine, and it just wasn't anything particularly great. But the one thing that he did do very well was he was really good at the 10-yard split. And that is kind of what you're dealing with this guy. He's kind of a bit of a bowling ball who's just going to sort of like go into people, and he's very good at that initial 10-yard split. But he's not going to he lacks the long speed. He's not going to just fly off and do amazingly and get you a 60-yard touchdown. He doesn't have much in the receiving game when you look at what he's done. And to me, he's like a Toyota Hilux. That's what you're dealing with here. You've got a pickup truck kind of guy. That's what you've got. So he does have his limitations because of that. However, I think he's got great contact balance. You can see it in the tape. Whenever he gets hit, he stays up, he keeps going, can change direction really, really quickly, gets through tight gaps. He's only 5'8", so it's like he can get through small gaps, but he's kind of like he's built for volume rather than like explosive sort of like big plays. He's had 670 carries in his college career, and he has not fumbled the ball once. Wow. Great in pass protection, which actually a lot of these guys are not. That's a really big thing that is a lot of people are saying, that a lot of these guys are not great in pass protection. He is very, very good, and that's what gets you on the field a lot of the time. So it's like if he does that, and he does that well in the NFL as well, then I think he's got a very good chance of getting involved. And yeah, he's just one of them guys that wants to run through you. That's what you're dealing with. And so I think he's day 3, definitely. He there's no way that he's getting drafted in day 2. But again, as we were saying, it is all about landing spot. It is all about where they decide to, if a team decides to give him draft capital of, say, like a 5th round pick, if just purely if you want to talk from like a fantasy point of view, if he gets a 5th round pick, lots of people go, I'm not going to bother then, there's no point. But Chase Brown was a 5th round pick, and look how well he did, sort of thing. So that it's all about where they land. Yeah, so it's all about where they land, and if you can get into a decent spot or not. And I think he's got a very good chance of being one of them running backs that you see is still in the NFL in like 8 years' time. But he's more of a team guy rather than like a fantasy guy person.
The 2025 Ray Davis, I love that.
Yeah, there you go. What more could you want?
Are we going to get a defensive play from you this time, Andrew?
He is defensive, but he's a bit of a special player, and it's an Ole Miss player again. So I think this is now looking at like maybe the 7th or 8th Ole Miss player that we spoke about in this whole sort of prospects shows that we've been doing. There's a lot of people we like from that team, and it's JJ Pegas, 325 pounds, 6'2". He is a defensive tackle, defensive end, tight end, fullback, if you want all the positions that he plays. But mainly, I think he's going to be predominantly used as a defensive tackle. I think that's where his main strengths are at his size. He's going to play in 3 tech, 5 tech. He can play in 0 tech as well. So all of them athletic. And as we've said, when I talked about my first player, versatility, I think, is massive for any prospect coming out, that they're not just pigeonholed of that's all they can do. And this guy is great as a defensive end as well, gets really good penetration. He's had 3.5 sacks over the last 2 seasons, but explosive first step, great body control, footwork is good. I just think he's got really rare traits for a guy of his size that will play on the inside and a little bit on the outside if needed. But then we also talk about his other areas that I said he was defensive tackle, defensive end. That's where he's going to play and he's going to be solid. But his tight end and fullback ability is also something to note, that he had 7 rushing touchdowns last season, but not for a hell of a lot of yards. It's predominantly goal line work that he's getting. And he also had 1 receiving touchdown as well. He was a former tight end before he transferred and had 3 years at Ole Miss. So he definitely knows how that operates. And I just think that is going to be value. We've seen Dan Campbell using offensive linemen in various other opportunities. And I just like
Christian Wilkins springs to mind.
You're going to get a guy here that you can do a lot of things with. You can do a lot of things with this guy. He's not just going to be settled on defensive tackle. You could use him in there. Then you could use him as what I think would be great as a goal line touchdown machine. When we were talking about our running back prospects and we were talking about the likes of Travion Henderson and people like that, and we were like, yeah, they're going to be great for the NFL. But what we don't want them doing is running really fast and slamming themselves into like a stacked box into the line of scrimmage. You could use this guy for that. So, and he's going to get results. I just love that you can do so much with him. And I think, like I said, the likes of the Lions, maybe now the Bears, now with Ben Johnson, is going to love this guy and fall in love with him and have packages built for him. So I think he's definitely one to watch out for and listen for the name when it gets to the NFL.
Versatility is a word that you keep bringing up, and I love it. I love that he can be able to do that, and it could be really interesting in the NFL if he gets them opportunities to play both sides. Everyone's talking about Travis Hunter. No one's talking about JJ Pegas. I mean, he should be taking the headline. He will be taking the headlines, I'm sure. Adam, on to your next player.
Yeah, so my next guy, we were a little bit mean during the top 10s. We didn't do any safeties or linebackers because really there's not that many to talk about. However, there is one guy that I quite like who is a little bit further down, not the top safeties or anything like that. But Kevin Winston Jr. out of Penn State is a guy who I think has got a lot of things going for him. Donovan Ezeraku, what is it we say about him?
Hair on fire.
Runs with his hair on fire. This is another one who runs with his hair on fire. The man is a lunatic, is probably the nicest way to put it. 6'2", 215 pounds, superb tackler, really, really good tackler, great size and frame. He's elite against the run, really, really good against the run. Cannot do much against man coverage and falls apart, but against the run, he's very, very good. Real sort of physical enforcer type guy who just has instincts, and he's probably got that because his dad played at quite a high level. He played at James Madison, so he's kind of got that sort of like that going for him and that lineage, which is always a big thing as well. So yeah, he's got loads of things going for him. Like I say, not great against man coverage. He tore his ACL in 2024, which is, I think, the reason why that you're probably going to find he slipped down boards. I actually think he'll probably go round 3. So
Okay.
I don't think he's a day 3 guy, but I think he will go round 3. And I do feel like sometimes when he's going up against play action, I feel like he can be manipulated a little bit by the quarterback. He can sort of like, it's almost like he goes for it thinking that's where it's going to go. And then, of course, it's not going there and he just missteps a little bit. But he's got a lot of good fundamental things about him that's really good. Very, very good in one specific area, obviously, against the run. He does that incredibly well. So any team that plays like cover 1, cover 3, going to be great. And yeah, he's just got a lot of good things about him. And I think the reason that he slipped probably to the 3rd round, I think he would have been a much higher prospect if it wasn't for the ACL tear, because he's only started 13 games. So he is a little bit raw because of that and just not had the experience. But yeah, I think that's why he's probably where he's going to go. But yeah, very clever player who is going to make a very good safety for some team.
Sounds exciting. Sounds very, very exciting. Having a very physical. That feels like sort of Legion of
Sounds
Boom.
like a Pittsburgh player, doesn't it?
Sounds like a Pittsburgh. Well, immediately when you said it, my first thing was Cam Chancellor. Was like that sort of thing. But maybe how big? You didn't say he was that big, right? He's not like he's 6'2".
6'2", 215.
Okay, I don't know what Cam Chancellor's measurables are, but the way you're talking about him, it felt very much like that sort of impact type guy, which would be. I'd love that for the Steelers, but we're pretty savvy at that in a minute as we are. Andrew, on to your final player.
Yeah, I'm just going to give Adam some props for that player because I do think
he's
going to be probably the first one picked out of all these prospects we've picked, and I do think he's not enough people are talking about him because the safeties there isn't loads of them, but I think he is well up there with them and could have a good chance at being the best prospect that we've got so far. Adam said that the safeties and the linebackers, we didn't do a show, but I've got a linebacker as well on my last one. And that is Barrett Carter from Clemson, 6 foot, 231 pound linebacker. Another guy, Adam, that I feel like we've been talking about for a long time. I mean, I had him on last year, I had him as on our prospects. I think I had him at 2 or 3 of our linebacker prospects in our, I think we were going to do a top 5, and he decided to return. So we got him off there, but I'm really high on this guy. I think he's great. Last year, 3.5 sacks, 42 solo tackles over his career at Clemson, 12 career sacks, 3 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles. I think consistent is the word that you can use for this guy. 5-star recruits, had multiple all ACC selections, Big Ten 2022. I think he had double-digit tackles for loss, multiple sacks, multiple interceptions, multiple forced fumbles. And I think that was got him nominated for an award that year, didn't quite make it. I think Nakobe Dean and Isaiah Simmons are 2 of the players that have managed this as well, to do all those multiples at that one position. So definitely a guy that you should be really, really high on. He's a great tackler. He comes down and meets players and with a big force, big thumping tackler. He's got that great sideline to sideline speed that you want to see from linebackers as well. I think he's really good on the blitzing. I think he's good. He's got really good eye when it comes to zone coverage as well. But I do feel like sometimes he is a bit aggressive and kind of overruns plays. And I do think he needs to really, really hone his skills in coverage. We're saying he's really good at attacking going forwards, but I think going backwards, I think that's where, and covering is where he needs to strengthen if he's going to be an every down back. I think he's going to be an early down linebacker when he gets to the NFL, and I think he has the upside to be a 3 down eventually in his career. But yeah, I'm really high on this guy. I think he's a real, from a very strong school in Clemson on defense, and I was really high on him last year, so I'm going to stay high on him this year, despite the fact he's going to be about round 4 or 5 in this draft. So,
it's one of my favorite positions, linebackers. So I'm always excited to see all the ones that come out. And definitely, like I said, Clemson is a prestigious school, and Barrett Carter, it'll be really fun to see him on a team that utilizes the linebackers in a fun sense. So yeah, it'd be good to see him go. If hopefully he goes a little bit further than 5, if it is in the 4th, you never know. Someone might take a punt even in the 3rd. You never know. Maybe that's overreaching a little bit, but a lot of these teams do if they really like the traits. Adam, who is your final player?
So my final guy is Tommy Hill, corner from Nebraska. Now, I think he's probably going to be quite late in this one. I think we are looking like round 5, round 6 for this guy. But what I noticed from the tape that I saw is that he does have a few really good things about him. I think he's got just a general instinct for the position. And he's another one, actually, who he played corner, wide receiver and returner. So he's got quite, he can read the game. He's got the football IQ in order to be able to play them positions. And obviously I'm not saying that he's going to be doing it at the same level as what Travis Hunter's doing it, but he has done that, and he's done that to a decent standard. He had 13 passes defended in the 24 season, which was tied first in the Big Ten. So he's done well for that. Like I said, I just think he's got a natural instinct for it, and he's got a good sort of size and frame. He's 6 foot. He's 213 pounds. So he's sort of like he's got the sort of, not only has he got the fundamentals, but he's got the size and shape in order to be able to go up against bigger guys as well as smaller guys. He isn't the quickest. He did run a 4.55 at the combine, and he does have, like, when you look at it, when he's going up against them real top end speed guys, he does sort of struggle against that. You can see that there are his agility is maybe not quite where you want it to be. So, I wouldn't be having him going up against, Tyreek Hill or Xavier Worthy kind of thing. But I think that he's a solid corner 2 on a team. I think that's probably what you're dealing with here. He has only played 1 full season at cornerback. He's, because he's played in other positions, but he's very good at zone coverage. Struggles a bit against man coverage, but yeah, I think he's got the potential to be very solid. But I think, again, it's another guy who's going to be quite team dependent and land in spot, and it's going to be a case of, if there's a team out there that really needs someone to play zone, and that's that's what they do, then I think that he's got a really good chance of being able to do something and being involved quite early on. I just don't think that he's going to be able to sort of like translate to being an amazing player. But yeah, and then obviously he's got the versatility to play as a wide receiver if they need him to, or as a punt returner if they need him to, or something like that, because he's done it before. So I think that will help him get drafted as well. But yeah, I think we're talking probably round 6, to be honest.
Tommy Hill is an NFL name. What a name!
I mean, it's got an I at the end of it as well. I mean, what more do you want? Yeah.
Well, thank you, Adam and Andrew, for them players and for the fringe first round players as well. Lots of fun. I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye out on all these players, and so should you. We've got loads of NFL draft content coming your way until the draft, where hopefully we'll be all watching it and enjoying it all together. Maybe seeing some of these names in the next days and the days after, and you'll remember this episode. But until then, keep an eye on our YouTube and all of our social media as well, and we'll see you all again very soon.